hello, this is Wilson. If you're wondering the reason why I'm whispering, it's because it's a little bit late, but I had to record this on the fly because I have just watched the most amazing and terrible movie at the same time. I'll explain. What the hell is up with Jungle Safari? I bought the movie called Jungle Safari with some nice cute 3D animated lions. No, not lions, leopards. No, cheetahs. Oh, that's confusing because they look like leopards, but they're meant to be cheetahs. But, and there is a tiger in the movie as well, so it gets a bit confusing. But, that's what I found at the pound store, and I bought it with a bunch of the pound movies, expecting it to be absolute trash. And, in other words, it was, but never in the way I expected. It was bad, but oh my goodness, when you think you've seen the worst, you never have. I never quite understood what the nostalgia critic meant when he said that, but I do now. I've started reviewing movies and buying things from pound stores. Oh my god, it's really bad. I cannot explain how bad it is. Well, I'll try to, though. I'll try to. You'll probably be able to find it yourself if you want to. I honestly don't know. It might be very limited in supply. But it was a movie which was originally Indian, as far as I know. Or Hindu or something like that. Originally Indian, I think. It was in... it had Indian stuff in it. So it was originally in Indian, but it was dubbed and edited for England. And oh boy, that's where the problems start. The one which I got was obviously the English one, and there was no option for the original language on the DVD. I tried, I checked. So, there wasn't even any subtitle options, so I had to watch the whole movie without any knowledge of knowing what they were trying to say, and sometimes it was a bit difficult to tell. But I started the movie and instantly I knew I was in for a ride. Because most movies, they start off with a general, easy to do thing, like a sky pan, or an area pan, or a narration, something simple to go with, something boring to the cliche book to start off with, before they show the title screen, or some comedy scene, you know. Alpha and Omega start off with sliding on a log, that kind of thing. You know, most low-budget movies follow the book when it comes to starting the movie. These people screwed up at the first step. Because as soon as the movie started, I thought that something was wrong with the DVD for a second. Because the movie started, like, instantaneously. It didn't have any panning shots, any environment development. It just shot right into the character talking to the screen. And it was really strange. Well, the character was talking to themselves, talking about how sad it was that the forest was dying. And how he lost something important, like his father or something. And he cried into a puddle, and then it's transitioned to a different scene, without any time skip or warning of what it was skipping to. And that scene at the beginning of the movie is never referred to again. It never gets to that part later on, even though the rest of the movie is meant to be a flashback of going past that moment, because the end is obviously resolved. So it failed to cross the two things. So even though it tried to do the thing from, like, maybe An Emperor's New Groove, where it tried to start the movie with the bad bit and then go forward to find out how it got there, it tried that cliche, but screwed it up, because it never brought it up. So it wasn't really a flashback, it was just something that never happened. It was like a preview, like a trailer or something. It was really odd. Now, there's quite a lot of weird transitions and animation in this movie. I have to say, there's a lot of weird cuts, and you can tell it just doesn't feel right. The flow is cut off all the time in this version. I've discovered later that a lot of, after I looked up the original language, that a lot of these scenes which seemed very badly transitioned were actually not done so in the original, but had put pieces of unimportant pieces, like bits of comedy scenes or bits in between scenes, like when they get dizzy and they get rid of the bit where they're showing them spinning around just so they fall on the floor. Little tiny bits like that to cut for time for the DVD which you'd think wouldn't make that much of a difference. But if there's any example of a movie to show you how much of a difference little sections, even if they're only a few seconds, in unimportant scenes can make a difference to a movie and ruin it, this is a very good example. When you compare the two, it's astonishing how much it changes the movie. It just keeps you so disconnected to the flow of the movie all the time. It's jarring you. It brings you out of the experience. You can never really feel like you can get into the movie because it constantly feels like it's jarring you, like someone prodding you while you're watching it, It's just sort of like, go. No scene ever flows, and there's no other connection to scenes. And a lot of the time there were things going on in the background which were interconnected with each other. So when this was messed up, it really was confusing, because sometimes a character would be one place and then suddenly be in another place and you had no idea how they got there, because the scene where they transitioned is missing. So there's quite a bit of that. Although, to be fair, the original movie also has bad transitions between scenes where they do appear in different places where it hasn't been explained. So the original movie did have some of that, but it only had a bit of it, and in places where it didn't matter. So it wasn't that jarring. The bits where it needed a flow, there was a flow. But in the edited one, for the English release, there wasn't. It cut out every single piece of unnecessary bit. And every piece which you would consider to be not entirely necessary, they cut out. And it really shows. It just doesn't flow right at all. It's jagged all the way through. You'd be surprised how bad that really affects the movie, but it does. But moving on, it starts off the movie with this dripping water and talking to the screen about something. Then it goes flashback, and it goes, well, I presume it's a flashback because it doesn't tell you about any time skip on the screen. But at least I didn't notice one. I might have missed it, just in case it comes up in the recording. But as far as I knew, there wasn't one. But there was, they move over to their father playing with a little cub, and they were apparently leopards, although they're actually cheetahs. In the original one it calls them cheetahs, in this movie it calls them leopards. So, whatever. So I'm just going to call them leopards according to the English one, because they do look more like leopards, to be honest. So, these leopards, there's a father and a son doing some play fighting. And as the father's trying to teach his son how to fight, the mother comes in and is very annoyed about the fact that the father is messing around with the son and teaching him how to fight when he's only a cub. Hence she gets in a bit of a strop and storms off. And already this makes me laugh, because there was a scene where it sounded very forced when she said a line like she was forcing her not to swear. And there's quite a lot of scenes where it sounded like they were being forced to say something nicer than what they were supposed to say. And you realise why when you watch the Hindu one, because in the Hindu one there were some quite harsh insults sometimes. Not really harsh, but they were a little bit strange for a kids' movie, not 100% safe. And this movie was supported by PETA, so there's quite a lot of cuts when it comes to things like that. They wanted to be child safe, in some respects at least. You'll see what I mean later. PETA isn't always aware of child guidance and what should be in a children's movie. Certainly this proves it. But you'll see what I mean later. This movie, there was something shocking in it. But several shocking moments actually. But as I was saying, what was I saying? I said the leopard was with his son. And oh yeah, she says to him, "I should give you a smack on the bum." She says,
"Don't play dumb. You both deserve a smack on the bum." Which
is not at all what she says in the Indian version. And you know how I know that? Even though the Indian version I watched did not have subtitles, I did get the gist of the movie, considering I'd already seen the English one in the first place. It did not have subtitles, but there was a lot of scenes in the original movie where they did speak English anyway, as a stylish thing. And a lot of those were not the same lines as were in the English one. They were changed instead and improvised. And one of the lines was that one, where she said, "I should give you a smack on the bum." Apparently they thought it was important to show that you need to punish your children with violence for some reason. But they're not allowed to say but. Oh no, you have to say bum. because that's just too rude. I don't understand the moral logic there. But that's what they said. In the original, all she said was, "Oh, shut up." and that was it. She said that in English in the other one. She went, "Oh, shut up." And it's like, well, why did you change that? Changed it to be to the boy getting a spanking. I don't know how that's any better, but apparently that's better. So that was a red flag in the first place. We were a bit like, oh dear, we've got into some rubbish now, because we saw things like that and we were like, oh, and we saw the Peter at the front and we were like, oh, yeah. I watched this with my brother. Both of us were just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be bad. We like watching bad movies for a laugh. Oh, oh my goodness, excuse me, I don't know whether you could hear that. Got a bit of heartburn going on here. Anyway. I had some macaroni cheese. It was worth it. But anyway. So, she gets all stroppy, and then we have a musical number. Oh yes, this is a musical movie. Oh boy, you know you're in for a treat when it's a musical. Poundland musical. Kids movie. Yeah. So, one thing I did notice as well is that the lip sync is really off. They did not do the lip sync well in this movie. They did translate it rather accurately. We did find that. But they did not even bother to make the words sound anything remotely like they would with lip sync. So just don't bother with that. After a while, it doesn't get that irritating. You get used to it after a while, but it is pretty bad. But then when they started the music, one of the things I noticed about the music in the movie was that the music backing was great, but it did feel like it was lacking a polish, like several layers of instruments were missing. It didn't feel like a song. It felt like a song was playing in the background and someone was screaming over it. It didn't really sound like an actual music number in a movie. It didn't sound compiled properly, like a composure. It didn't sound right at all. It sounded more like a karaoke. And the characters did not know how to sing. The characters were terrible at singing. The voice actors are awful. And if you need an example of a movie ruined by purely just editing and voice acting, you have this. This movie is a perfect representation of how much bad voice acting can affect your movie. Because the words that they're saying are very accurate to what's actually said in the movie. It's the way they're delivered that ruins it. So badly delivered, it's amazing. But, yeah, so they had this, and I've realised that the tunes, because they're from the original movie, I tell you, the Indian music in the original movie is amazing. It's really good. And there's some catchy tunes I'm still singing nowadays. Even though I don't know the words, there's a tune that goes da da dum da 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 da, and then it goes Delhi Safari. It says in English, and it just, oh man, that was one of the songs which was actually part of that song. That bit which I was singing was in the English one as well. So I did hear it twice, and I still love that tune. It's really catchy. But I found the backing songs, the backing music and everything was much more relevant. The backing's music was much more relevant. The backing music was the only thing that was in this one, so it sounded very wrong. It sounded like it was dubbed over, like a parody. It didn't sound right at all, not professionally done. And the singing is awful. And it's funny because one of the lines they said, "We're in time," and they were completely out of sync with each other. That made us laugh quite a bit. Like, we're in sync. No, you're not. No, you're not.
I've got a feeling you're gonna be sleeping outside the cave tonight, Dad.
Don't worry, Yuvi. I know a secret way of getting back on her good side.
How?
With a song.
Everything you are and everything I am, we're together like the earth and flowers understand. We are all in tune each and every day. How can we be happy with that look upon your face? Cause you know that I'm yours and you are mine. You don't have to stay so angry. To forgive and to forget is what it takes, and that's what makes a family. I do this your way. You didn't know I'm gonna chase you all day. Oh, you know I can't go on without you. Give us a smile, you know I love you. 'Cause you know that I'm yours and you are mine, and you don't have to stay so angry. To forgive and to forget is what it takes, and that's what makes a family.
One more pretty word out of you. Walk away is just what I'm gonna do. It's always the same song of barter. You should try to charm a little harder. 'Cause I know that you are mine and I am yours, and no one knows it better than me. To forgive and to forget is what it takes, and that's what makes you my family.
लगता है आज की रात आपको केव के बाहर ही सोना पड़ेगा।
अरे डोंट वरी बेटा, मुझे अच्छी तरह आता है तेरी माँ को कैसे पटाना।
कैसे?
बेटा गाना।
ओ मेरी दुनिया तेरे दम से सच कहता हूँ, मेरी बात मान ले। रूठी है क्यों ऐसे मुझसे, बिन बोले ही मेरा हाल जान ले। गुस्सा तेरा झूठा है रे, झूठा है रे, झूठा है रे, सच्चा नहीं। ऐसे में जलाना तड़पाना, दिल दुखाना जाना अच्छा नहीं। हो रे हो रे हो रे हो मारे, हो रे हो रे हो रे हो मारे। आंखें ना फेर मुस्कुरा दे, मेरे सपनों को तू सजा दे। मेरे दोनों जहान रख दूं, तेरे कदमों पे जान रख दूं। तेरे बिना जीना नहीं, जीना नहीं, जीना नहीं, जीना नहीं। तू है जहाँ, तू है जहाँ, तू है जहाँ, तू है जहाँ, मैं हूँ वही।
तेरी दुनिया से दूर जाऊं, तेरे झांसे में मैं न आऊं। ऐसे वैसे पटर लगाना, तुझे तो आता है पटाना। तेरे पहलू में चली आई, चली आई, चली मैं हार गई। खिलेंगे रूखे सूखे, रूखे सूखे, रूखे सूखे गुल प्यार के।
So the father was started singing, and the child started singing to the mother to try and make her feel better. He said, "We're a family," basically, saying, "Oh, you're going to forgive me." And some of the lines he said were a bit weird, like it was a bit overpowering. He wasn't saying, "Oh, come on, please cheer up, lovely." He wasn't saying that. He sort of said, "You're mine," and it's like, "You are mine, and you should behave," kind of thing, which was a bit strange. So we got like for overpowering men in this movie as well. It's like these, you find these weird things, small little niggles in this movie which sound a bit suggestive of something a bit offensive, and there's quite a lot of that in the English version. I don't know whether I think it's more the way it's said. Scratch on here. I think it's more the way it's said in this version rather than the actual translation. I don't think it says that in the original. Doesn't sound anything like that in the original. But basically, in the end, she forgives them, and there's a little bit of a singing of all the other animals come together. And I love the way she looks so surprised when all the other animals suddenly pop up for the music, because you know in musicals all the other characters in the background, which are not at all involved, just jump in out of nowhere. And she just looked so baffled. She was like, what? What are you doing here? Which is pretty funny, to be honest, because I was thinking, yeah, the same thing. Where the hell did these animals come from? Because they were not mentioned or introduced at all. They didn't just walk into the scene. They didn't walk in at all. They just appeared. It was pretty funny. Quite a lot of that kind of thing happens in the movie. I think this was the one thing which was in the original as well as in the other one. It wasn't because of a bad cut. They just appeared, but that's part of a musical, so you can kind of forgive that. But, so they carried on, and she forgave them, and then suddenly they found this giant machine. There was like a nonsensical, weird version of a tree-cutting crane machine, which doesn't actually exist. It's like several machines put together. Monster machine comes over and starts running over, trying to run over the father and the son for some reason. Just chases after them for no reason at all. And it's like, oh no, environment, no, humans. Basically, it's like the nostalgia critic says, could it be man? Dun dun dun. Yeah, pretty much. That's what it does. So it's a very environmental movie. So this giant vehicle chases after them, and the funny thing about it is that it chases them into this dry area where there are no trees. So this thing isn't trying to cut trees and they're in the way. It's directly trying to kill them. There's no trees for it to cut in that area. It's just trying to cut them down. Then they get into this crevice, and there's quite a lot of parallels to The Lion King, you'll notice here, specifically in this scene. And even in the original, I noticed that the backing sounded a lot like the Lion King Stampede music. Even that happens quite a lot. There's quite a lot of copyrighted copycat songs, or directly copyrighted songs in the original movie, which were not used in the English one, probably because they didn't have the rights. So that's something interesting. So the scenes end up a bit more empty because of that. Also, there's quite a few scenes missed here where there's some slow-mo and dramaticness, which has been cut out, which means that the scene isn't dragged out quite long enough when they cut out the pieces. So everything happens a bit suddenly, which doesn't feel quite right. You know what I mean if you see it. But so they're running away from the thing, going da 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 da, running away from this massive crane machine that's for some reason trying to kill them for no reason at all. And then there's a bunch of crane machines they find in this canyon, which they run into, which makes no sense because there are no trees in it. And they see a bunch of destruction around because this is a place where all the trees have been chopped down already and everything's dry and dead. Except that's something which the original one did, not the English one. In the English one, they didn't show the trash as much, they just showed the cranes, which is a bit sad because that's kind of the undertone of the movie. They kind of missed a bit there, but whatever, it doesn't really matter at this point. So the father finds, looks at the kid, all the people actually come out of the cars, well, the reason why I'm so surprised about that is because I watched another movie which is published by the same company, which is very similar, and the humans never came out of the cars. The cars just chased after them like animals. It was really weird. So I was expecting the same thing to happen, but it didn't. The person came out with a gun, a shotgun, and they laid up the shots and were about to shoot the father. So the father picked up the cub and threw it to the wife, which was over the other end of the cliff, therefore saving the little boy, and the father died, getting shot by the human. And it doesn't even shy about it. It shows you it. It doesn't show you it. It shows you it from the side, so you don't see, but you do see the bullet go in, which is pretty damn dark for a kids' movie, to be honest. And considering the fact they weren't allowed to say "but," they had to say "bomb" instead, and yet they are allowed to show a character get directly shot and killed, and he's proper killed in this movie. He's not a fake out. He actually dies through the whole movie. For the whole movie, he's dead. So that was pretty tragic for a kids' movie, I'm warning you. And the rating on this movie was nowhere near good enough for some of the things on it. It says parental guidance, and it says mild cartoon violence and threat. Oh yeah, mild cartoon violence. Something getting shot and killed in the chest. That's mild, yeah. Apparently. So the rating's terrible on this movie for a start.